Hi, welcome to Access to Medicine's platform.
Well, for me, it's about women's right. For example, I think the women's right is still not accepted fully when we're talking about gender-based violence. So that is a thing we need to bring to this table today, I think.
For me, I think what I know or what comes to my mind when I hear about gender-based violence is these are kind of harmful acts that are inflicted on people against their will. Yeah, it can be a man or a woman or a child.
I would say GBV is an aggression towards a specific gender, mostly based on the it takes a social form of an aggression towards a specific gender.
Some of the violences that I've heard of are physical violences, with emotional violences,
And economic, the forms of economic GBV.
Sexual violence.
Yeah, for me, I would like to give an example for social media, which was, I think, posted in September, which reached out actually the whole of the world. It was about the Olympic runner who was killed in terms of gender-based violence by her husband. I think this is a big example of the way it shouldn't be in the world. And a good example which speaks out for everyone in the world that gender-based violence is not a thing we want and a thing we need to fight for.
I think we have cultural practices. So these take the form of traditional beliefs, which we are yet to pass. So you find that within our traditional setups, we still have those beliefs that we've decided to take up. We've not decided to not pass them as much as they, I could say they're a bit unfair to either gender. So I could speak about the cultural beliefs that we still have within our communities.
I would say these are being influenced by our upbringing. Most of us are being brought up in societies where, in homes that were patriarchal. Growing up, we were brought up in patriarchal society and homes where we believe that, or many people believe that things need to be done in a certain way. Basically, this is in reference to women, that women need to do things in a certain way, and if they do contrary, a form of punishment is inflicted on them, leading to some of these harms that we are witnessing being done to them.
I think that's a good point you're standing out, because I think it's a lot about traditional ways people used to. Maybe it's also a part of not knowing that it can be different. I think that's the main part we need to address here as well, that the awareness of, for example, female genital mutilation is not a thing we want to have in our human rights. Maybe some people just don't know that it's like a really bad thing. So I think that's also part of the traditions that they're into. I think we still have. I think we also come from a history of where especially the female is like less than a man, and I think we're growing in the fact that there has become an equity in like gender, but we still have a way to go there as well. I think in terms of like high positions in big companies, mostly there are men who are the directors of or the CEOs of these companies. And women, they don't stand a chance that much as the men do. So I think still there's still gender-based violence in a way, although I think it's in a different way than it's, for example, over here in the rural countries of Kenya.
Me, I would say emotional violence because it's not something that you can see, and the person who is undergoing this form of violence, it's not easy to speak up when you are maybe undergoing these challenges. So it's usually overlooked, and it's also, I think I can say it's hard to detect.
I think another point around emotional abuse could be that things like anxiety, which could show up within your day-to-day activities. You could be having panic attacks as soon as maybe you hear from that said person. So I think those are some of the pointers as well, which I could add on top of what my colleagues have touched on.
Yeah, and also to wrap up the emotional violence, you can also say that psychological violence goes hand in hand with emotional violence, because just as the example my colleague has given in a relationship setup, maybe for example you've been married for 10 years and you have not been able to bear a child. So all the time maybe your partner tells you you cannot give birth, you cannot give birth. Yes, it's something that will start affecting you psychologically, and that's another form of violence. Yes.
Okay.
Or if you're just giving birth to one gender, you're like, you can't give me this gender, you can't give. Those are some of psychological violences that women go through.
And I think the troubling part is that we don't speak out. It just is behind closed doors. No one sees, no one talks about it, but actually it's there, and I think it's there in a lot of homes, even maybe with your neighbors. You don't know because people don't speak out. And I think it starts with speaking out so they can get the help they need. Even maybe go and have a court session on it. But the main thing is maybe go to a safe center or anything to share your story. And I think when you share, there definitely will be help.
As an organization, I can say we need to create awareness through different platforms on how someone can either detect or what someone should do once he or she feels she's violated. The steps where to begin, just creation of awareness, you increase the creation of awareness to the community and the nation.
Individually, I would say that since this violence more so towards women, it is said that maybe it's men driven. So I would say that it's time for men to understand that masculinity is about taking care of, should be about taking care of the less or the vulnerable people in the society. These are the young people, the young girls and women in the society, and not about enforcing some of these traditional way of doing things on them. So I would say, as men, we should now start looking at masculinity differently. See, because toxic masculinity is what is causing all these violence in the society.
I think as men, we need to reduce the stigma around GBV. First, by speaking up about these issues, even within our family setups, and just advocating for the protection of the girl child, just being brave enough and being bold around some of these issues affecting women within whatever setup we are in. So it could be within our friend groups, which they could take the form, they could be a bit masculine, but just being bold enough and talking about some of this and championing for equal rights and equality for women in whatever form. It could be in the workspaces, it could be on our day-to-day commute, just ensuring that the lady or the next person who's close to you, who could be maybe in a situation where she is exposed to GBV, you're able to maybe just come up and speak boldly around the issue affecting that lady at that point. And I think men also need to be approached from a point of just involving them around some of those the structures being set around GBV. It could be policies, it could be advocacy in whatever form, just involving them in the process, but not necessarily making them the final decision makers around setting some of those structures.
I'll just echo on what my colleague has said and say that, men are being left out of these conversations. And so I would say that it's time we involve men, we make them part and parcel of these conversations around SGBV. Because it is one thing making the women in the society understanding that someone can cause you go through emotional violence, someone can maybe you are going through physical violence, and these are being triggered by men. And it's another thing, you bringing these men on board and making them understand that in as much as we were brought up in a society where things used to be done in a certain way, we are now in a progressive society whereby the women in this setup right now are informed. It is time for organizations like us to make sure that this awareness also, we create awareness in a way that we make men informed that women and men, we are equal.